Thank you. Okay, next question. We're going to go in reverse order, so Franklin will go first with this question. And just a little word about order. I've mixed up the order so the candidates who are opposing each other will flip-flop in terms of going first and second. So this first official question, Franklin, we'll start with you. It's kind of a broad question. We'll start with a broad question about the Chatham County in transition. $9 billion in new economic development projects have been announced this year to continue development of Chatham Park and a myriad of new housing projects. We're growing. Here's the question. As you reflect on your elected position and Chatham's future, what opportunities and challenges does this growth present for you in your position, and how will you work, if you're elected, to make a bigger and more populous Chatham County a better Chatham County? And it's a 2-minute question, Franklin.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. Of course, growth in incoming populations and incoming economic opportunities provides pros and cons. And so, of course, we're seeing the lack of planning of past generations. We hear about sewage, we hear of water issues, and some people would like to point fingers at the current board, but we inherited that dilemma. This should have been planned 20, 30 years ago. And so right now, with the $9 billion in investments estimated, I've been pushing the board and bringing up just about every single board meeting during my commissioner's report, that we need to sit down and really identify all the needs in Chatham County. That's not to say that we're going to commit to them immediately, because there's a variety of ways that we can address this: grants, taxes, or these economic property taxes that we're going to get. So I mean, we got to sit down and really identify the needs and prioritize. Of course, that's going to be a challenge, but we can also address a lot of these issues simultaneously. And so, like I keep saying, we need to identify and plan these property taxes that we're estimating to collect from these economic opportunities to address major one-time investments. If we go and we budget them into the daily or yearly operations of our county, it's just going to evaporate. And it is not to say it's going to disappear, but it's just going to be in the budget, and a lot of these critical issues are not going to be addressed. So that is the way that I'm wanting to tackle it, is strategic planning of this economic opportunities that are being presented to us, because technically we could not have landed any of these. And so we operating on that mentality that we quote unquote didn't land on, and instead use that property tax that we're going to be generating from these economic opportunities to address these issues. I feel like we'd be in a lot better situation. I believe if you run the numbers in property tax of $9 billion, you're sitting around, what, 50, 60 million per year?
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, same question, Katie Kenley.
Well, I love this question because I can just build off of what Franklin was talking about. The growth and hugest challenges, and with that comes a lot of opportunity as well. So I mentioned affordable housing as a part of my platform and what I've been focusing on, and that can be defined in many different ways. What is affordable and to who? So really understanding the ways that this growth can serve our community, and with these new jobs coming in with VinFast and Woolspeed, we're really going to need to work with our legislature and make sure that we ensure these programs that are going to train people that live in Chatham to be able to have these jobs that are coming in. So access to these new opportunities for current residents and our students that are coming up in our school system to have a good job when they graduate and stay and live here in this county. And along with that, making sure that people that have lived here for generations have an opportunity to stay here. You know, a lot of people are seeing prices going up, and you know, we want to make sure we're including everyone in their ability to stay here if they're on a fixed income or whatever the challenge is with these changes coming. So there's really a long list of challenges and opportunities with this growth, but those are some of the ones that I'm glad I got an opportunity to speak with you about, and hopefully we'll be able to touch on some of the other ones.
Thank you so much. Joe Godfrey, same question. How will you work if you're elected to make a bigger and more populous Chatham County a better Chatham County?
Yeah, so I've looked at statistics. I'm a statistics person. I work in a business. I work for Siemens Industry and I'm responsible for millions of dollars worth of service business every year. So I see the ups and downs of the business, how things the ebb and flow of the business. One thing that we need to look at in Chatham County is the infrastructure. As it stands right now, the infrastructure is lacking, and I think we all can agree on that, regardless of which side you're on. The infrastructure is lacking in Chatham County. So what do we do about it? We've got one of the largest, or actually the highest sales tax rate in North Carolina, in Chatham County. Only 6 other counties are with us on the highest tax rate. Where's that money going? For the last 8 years, the same party has been responsible for knowing that this growth is coming. And yet, not much has been done about it. Now, we're behind the 8 ball. We're 2 to 3 years behind on infrastructure as it stands right now. We need to do something about it. We're going to need new schools. We're going to need wastewater treatment in some form. I know there's been a commission set up. There still hasn't been a decision made. But if you look at what's going on there, there's 14 different companies that are servicing the Northeast Chatham area. There's twice as many violations compared to other areas in our region for these 14 small wastewater treatment plants. And yet they charge 49% more despite a lower volume of treatment. Why isn't somebody advocating for that in Northeast Chatham? I think people should be concerned about it. We need to make sure that we're being responsible for the tax money. All of us are being affected by inflation right now. Every time I go to the grocery store, every time I go to the gas station, inflation is hitting all of us. So we need to make sure that we're using tax money from the people efficiently.
Thank you very much. Same question, Tom, and then 2 minutes.
Would you mind repeating the question for me?
Sure. Given Chatham County's growth, as you reflect on your elected position in Chatham's future, what opportunities and challenges does this growth present for you and your position if you're elected? And how will you work, if elected, to make a bigger and more populous Chatham County a better Chatham County?
Well, 2 things. One, I'm from the 6th biggest city in the country, and it's one of the most industrial. If you were riding in cars, on trucks, on trains, we usually had something to contribute to that from Cleveland. So I'm familiar with the result of growth. And I've seen this county come from, when I got here it was about 22,000, and we are now at what, 74,000, 77, somewhere in there. That's a lot of growth. Thankfully, my business was contracting, and so I benefited from that. But the other part of that is obviously how we're going to spend the money. Now, I think we can do an awful lot simply improving the planning process. I've sat on the planning board. We don't have to spend a great deal more money to accomplish the goals that are necessary to handle the growth. Not that we're going to be responsible for it. The contractors will come in, the developers will come in and increase the value of the county tax base, and our revenue will come and answer that question. Leadership is the key. Who do you want in charge of it? Somebody who's been in business for, well, I sat on the board of my hospital, my Cleveland hospital, since I was 14 and closed it out in 1987. I started a business here. I've been in business 46 years and started with $100 and a pick and a shovel. And I can guarantee you I know how to handle a nickel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And David Delaney.
Sure, thank you. I think 3 things. Is that too loud? Okay. A future Chatham County is 3 things in my mind. 1 is more equitable. 2, it is more balanced in the way that we grow and develop businesses so that we have a more balanced tax infrastructure, tax base in order to support and grow our economy. And 3, I think it can be more civil. We can strengthen our social bonds and increase the way that we connect with each other across differences, whatever those differences happen to be, and find common ground in ways to conduct civil discourse, as we're doing tonight, in a more positive way, in a more regular way, and in a more productive way. First, back to the concept of equity. In the 3 years that I've been a member of one of our local NAACP branches, I had the opportunity to chair the development of a report that looked at public data on the way that students are suspended and in some cases moved into the criminal justice system, referred to the criminal justice system. And the takeaway line from that body of work that we worked on as a team for about a year is that there is gross inequity in the way that our students of color, our students of lower socioeconomic statuses, or disability status, are treated in this county. And so we can do a much better job in terms of ensuring that everyone has a better starting point. And I would like to be able to do that, not just with our current Board of Education members, but with those who are also running, like Del Turner and Gary Leonard and Jane Allen Wilson, because I think they share a vision with me in terms of how to do that. Two, I think to Joe's point a little bit, one of the reasons that our tax base from an individual perspective may seem high is because our commercial tax base is so low. The News and Record recently reported that it's about 10%, and that is too low. So we need to fix that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, the next question is a 1-minute question, and Joe Godfrey will start with you. So 1-minute response. And here's the question: what in your background and experience uniquely distinguishes you from your opponent to make you a better choice for your office in this election? 1 minute.
I think it's my business background. I've been involved. I worked for the state for 5 years. Was involved with the state. I worked in my current position for 16 and a half years. I started as a lower level technician trying to learn the trade. And I think that's one of the things that we need to be concerned about now, is that children and teens aren't learning trades. We need to make sure that part of what we're doing in schools today is teaching children how to be productive in the workforce. That's something that we definitely need to be working on. However, I do feel like that I can provide that business sense in the county. I think I can balance the budget. I'm used to doing that. I can mine tax dollars because I'm used to doing that. So there's a lot of things that I can bring to the table that I'm not sure that my opponent can. I'm not hitting anything back there, but I just think that I can bring that part to the table that the opponent cannot.
Thank you so much. Kate Kinlan, same question, 1 minute.
Yes, well, thank you for that question. I was glad to see that my opponent adopted a lot of my platform that I started with when I filed back in the primary. And he's also mentioned that he would like to listen to Lankioso and the Haw River Assembly. And it was a great opportunity candidates had to fill out a questionnaire as to issues that we're dealing with wastewater, and I was unable to find his response to that questionnaire, but anyone can go and see candidates that have responded on their website. I think that one thing that's important about me is that I am a listener, and I have been knocking on doors all over this county ever since I filed, and it is a point of mine to make sure that I am available and accessible and commit to events like this so that I can hear questions from the public, because I'm running for county commissioner not to represent myself, but to represent the needs and the issues that are important to people in this county. So on all of my literature, you can find my phone number and email. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Franklin Gomez Flores, 1 minute.
Well, I got a biology degree, and District 5 is the lowest income, lowest resource district. And when you are at that situation, you need the basic necessities of life. I've been involved myself and immersed myself in these environments to ensure that my district, my community, our low-income community has these resources, not only in District 5, but throughout Chatham County. I know what it is to be by yourself, not know a lot of people, not have anything, starting from square one. I understand that. My family has also been, myself and my family, we've been involved in providing opportunities for the community on a personal, individual level. Well, I grew up with my parents providing natural occurring affordable housing in Siler City. What we would do was buy distressed properties, fix them up, put them to rent. And over the course of time, none of our properties went up beyond $700. And it wasn't until the pandemic hit that people were coming to us, you know, because they were very, thank you.
Thank you. David Delaney.
What distinguishes?
Yes, what in your background and experience uniquely distinguishes you from your company?
Thank you. Yeah, I think I would say it's the diversity of my professional experiences. So, like Tom, I have a background in the military. I spent 5 years in the Army after graduating from West Point. And then I diversified my career and worked as an attorney in a number of different roles for the Department of Homeland Security. And also took the opportunity to teach students at a top law school for a few years. I did that full-time and then part-time here. And now I'm part of a corporate team doing law. There's a common thread there, and that is bringing folks together and building strong teams and applying very different perspectives on a problem to try to bring resolution to it. One thing that I think is key to leadership in any of those scenarios and as a county commissioner is the ability to listen. It's about bringing people together, and you can't do that well unless you are truly listening to try to understand what's behind the concerns. And I think I can do that based on my professional experiences. It ties into that last point I mentioned about stronger social bonds and civil discourse. My hope is that that will bleed into the way that we lead each other here in this county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Tom Glendenning, 1 minute.
I won't waste too much of the time thinking about it.
I'm not starting the timer until you stop, until you start talking, so.
Very much appreciated. Now, the difference here is that, well, how did the Army-Navy game go this year? Remember?
Things are getting better.
Better. Well, anyway, I'm a Marine, and that means that we won. The thing that differentiates me is that I've lived here, I've worked here, I've worked in every part of the county, and from Harper's Crossroads down to Corinth, and lived in next to the Governor's Club before it was developed. Actually knew the man who owned the property and saw that developed, and lived in Silk Hope also. I know the county. I've farmed and I've talked with people all over. It's a part of my life. I can't say I got a degree in it, but believe me, my interests are for the landowners, the taxpayers, and the children of the county.
Thank you so much. Okay, this next question, and Tom, we're going to start with you. You'll be first. We're going to have questions coming up about affordable housing and the environment, so I just tip you off about that. But the question now is, what do you believe to be the most pressing issue facing commissioners, and how are you uniquely prepared to address that one issue if you're elected? So talk about the most pressing issue that you feel like the commissioners face, and how you will address that if you're elected. And you have 2 minutes.
Well, you mentioned affordable housing, and I'm a little off base on that because I don't think there is any affordable housing the way that it's regulated now. But I would say the key issue is in the framing of the problem solving, the problem definition, and how we go about defining what to do next and how to do it best. Now, we've got resources. My gosh, we've got educational institutions surrounding us. I mean some of the best in the country. We have resources that will help us determine anything. I sat on the Triangle J Council of Governments and was just amazed at the opportunity I had to learn about water quality. And that goes throughout everything. Any topic you want to talk about. We have resources in the private sector for education. We have it in the public sector for learning how to run a government. School of Government is just up in Chapel Hill. We do not lack in the ability to find out data, information in order for us to make a decision. And the choice is, do you want somebody who's going to be conservative and thoughtful and dutiful, making these decisions for the county, or not?
All right, thank you. David Lane?
Sure, in my perspective, in some respects, it may not be entirely different. The county has to balance the needs and the interests of our present residents and our near-term concerns with the reality of the long-term future that we see. And that long-term is not so very far out. This is not unlike the financial decisions we make for ourselves every day, every month, every year, when we decide whether to buy that extra little thing that is maybe a bit of luxury, or we put it into our retirement savings. We have to plan as a county for our future residents' selves the way we do for ourselves personally, and begin to really appreciate that and value that, rather than to focus on the present and what a slight additional amount of funding or tax may mean. Because the value gets returned in many different ways. If we invest in children and we make sure that every student truly has a more equal opportunity to succeed in life, we are reinvesting in this county over the long term in many different ways. Some of them we can begin to estimate and calculate, others we can't even imagine. Students who succeed will surprise us with what they can do for us when we're in our older years. From an infrastructure perspective, I'm very disappointed to see the status of things in the Northeast where I live. A large part of my District 3 is there. The county has not had the opportunity, really financially, to do something with the desire to plan strategically and long term. But we're getting there. And the Wastewater Study Commission's report is a great guide. And my hope would be to make that one part of the way that we begin to think long-term as a county, so that we can figure out a good way to achieve those long-term goals and not sacrifice future residents' money, quality of life, etc. And one particular way that that happens now is that we see paying more and getting poorer service for the private infrastructure that they have now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Franklin Gomez Flores, 2 minutes.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. I'm asking you to think about one specific present issue that the commissioners face and how you are uniquely prepared to address that if you are reelected to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. I believe one of the biggest issues we're facing is Chatham County is growing. In age, we have a greater population of more adult seniors, and one of the issues with that is we put a lot of money, we invest a lot of into our youth, and we don't have the resources for them to stay in the county. So many of the times they get educated outside the county and don't really come back. So I'm the youngest individual on the ballot. I'm 28. So a lot of these issues I'm able to relate, and I have a perspective to see things one way or the other. I'm able to see things differently and open to different discussions and different opportunities, and to be able to strategize the best approach to navigate and prevent this from happening. I grew up in Solid City when town was dying, and so being involved with the mega sites, both at VinFast and Wolfspeed, that was a great relief. But also affordable housing, as it keeps getting mentioned, it's a big issue, and that's an area where my family and I are individually involved to address, but also it's a situation that has to be addressed on the county level, but also by the private sector and through the public sector as well. And these situations can be addressed when you are able to relate with it the most. And just being the youngest individual, I believe that I can see these issues and am able to relate to them at an easier rate than the rest. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Katie Finley, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think you're going to hear a lot about growth, and that's what I would say is one of our most pressing issues. And really, growth touches on so many areas of what we need to harness economically, our education system for our kids, and how we set ourselves up for a bright future with being resilient and facing climate change. So ever since filing, something I've found really important to be tracking is our new Unified Development Ordinance. And everyone here can go to the website, recode Chatham, and put their public input and also follow the recommendations of our advisory board. So as a commissioner, we will be the ones appointing people to these boards, making decisions around growth and really problem solving and reacting to how we want to shape it. So with the Unified Development Ordinance, it's following something set in place years ago, Plan Chatham, to help protect the rural character of our county, but also provide opportunities for small businesses and how we think about what goes where and concentrating that growth.
Thank you very much. And Joe Godfrey, 2 minutes.
So I hate to agree with everybody, but I would agree that growth is the one pressing need and the one pressing thing that I think we can all agree on. There are many aspects of that growth. If you look at what's going to happen in the next 10 years, projection-wise, it's projected that our population in Chatham County is going to double. It's also projected that there could be up to 3,000 more students in our county in 10 years. It started out with 1,000. Now we're talking about potentially 3,000 students. So we're going to have to find a place for those students to go to school. A lot of our schools are at capacity or near capacity now. They will be at capacity, and I feel certain that the Board of Education candidate is going to talk about it. But growth is huge in our county. What are we going to do about all of the infrastructure issues that are existing now? I think we can work together as a group and as a commissioner board to take care of the problems that exist when they come up. But we also need to be thinking about the future and what's going to happen 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Growth is not something that's going to stop in Chatham County. Our governor has even said, and senators have said, hey, this is coming. It's here. Chatham County is the place to be. I love to hear that, but from someone who was raised on a farm in a rural area of the county, that's hard for me to hear. So I want to make sure that we are preparing ourselves for this growth. We don't need to be looking at things and being reactive. We need to be proactive when we're looking at growth. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, the next question, and Franklin Gomez Flores, will start with you. This is a question related to affordable housing. So we know that housing costs have skyrocketed, making Chatham's affordable housing problem even more of an issue. What solutions will you bring to the table for that, as well as other economic issues that make Chatham County one of the wealthiest and one of the poorest counties in North Carolina? 2 minutes.
Well, we have an affordable housing trust fund, and that provides money to organizations such as Habitat for Humanity and other agencies that provide some level of remodeling to existing homes that are distressed, so that they're able to retain it at a low cost. And so I'm very supportive of that aspect, but also our Article 46 fund, which has provided additional fundings over the years, since 2020, that it got implemented, and it has really been a boost to provide more affordable housing throughout Chatham County. For example, behind the hospital in Siler City, 72 units of affordable housing for the next 99 years, and that was a partnership between the state and federal government to allocate these or provide this opportunity. But also this notion of I know a lot of individuals don't like seeing the growth outward, and I'm a supporter of building up to be able to preserve more agriculture and provide additional units at more affordable housing. But also believe that we need to address the wastewater and the water situation, because if we're asking the developers to build their own wastewater plant, that just drives up the price for the housing. And so there's a variety of ways they can get tackled, but that's how I see the situation being addressed through me.
Okay, thank you very much. Joe Godfrey, 2 minutes.
Yeah, so $51,000 average wage at VinFast, that's what's been put out there in the news. $71,000 potentially at Wolf Speed, that's been the average wage that's been put out there in the news. I don't know about you, but most people making $51,000 is not going to be able to afford a house of today. So how do we tackle that? I do believe that as a county that we can have a well-designed policy to expand the availability of the two types of affordable housing that's available. That's the dedicated units that are subsidized by the government, but there's also the other type that's the market affordable housing. We need to make sure that we are in tune with the developers. We need to make sure we're in tune with the people. We have to understand what the average salary of people, what they do now, and what they make. We cannot afford to let this go again. For the last 8 years, it has not been taken care of. It is time to have a group of people who are willing to tackle the problem head on and do what we need to do to fix the problem, not wait until the problem's upon us. So that's what I would do.
Thank you very much. Katie Kimman, same question, 2 minutes.
Great. Well, I was glad Franklin could touch on the Habitat for Humanity Trust Fund. And as a commissioner, we have, should I be so fortunate, we have a lot of different ways we can create opportunities for affordable housing. And like I said in my opening, affordable housing to who? What is affordable housing? I know there's been some issues in developments where affordable housing is being defined as $400,000 or $200,000 town units. How is a family going to live in there? So we have the opportunity to create policy that really takes into account how we allow affordable housing to come into our county and support that. We also are able to use the budget to actually purchase land and have affordable housing built on that land. And Franklin talked about some units. So within the past year, I believe we have 270 new affordable housing units that our county facilitated and made happen. So I would like to continue efforts like that. And another aspect that I haven't heard spoken about is also having more rental units. We're in a deficit right now of over 2,000 rental units being available. So making sure that that's another option for people and that land isn't just being bought up in these big chunks, not taking into account that people need that option as well. So I look forward to really working with the county staff on how we budget and use policy to shape thoughtful, affordable housing.
Thank you very much. David Delaney, 2 minutes.
Sure. Affordable housing is a big issue, and it is a complex issue. There are no small problems anymore, and this is one of the perennial, really hard ones. Nobody's going to do this alone. People have been coming together for decades on this, particularly in this region, just not the way we are used to seeing it here in Chatham County. So we're catching up a little bit on the way that this conversation has been held in this region and across the country about what it means to have affordable housing. And to come back to my point earlier, we have to make a decision as a community about whether we value affordable housing enough to make the investments that we will need to build the spaces, increase the availability of housing, have a greater supply that will bring costs down, perhaps do some innovative, unique things with the way we use our land, and that's a key part of the UDO that's coming forward. And also think about what it will take to envision that future state. I'm not talking about 5 or 10 years. Nobody can wave a wand on this and radically change things for the better. We have to be looking a generation out and lay the groundwork for that. So one of the things that we might do there is to make a very concerted effort to focus the land use restrictions that come out in the UDO and make sure we take maximum advantage of the ability to bring density in places where it's really important to make sure that we will have the best opportunity for affordable housing and make those commitments now. We're not going to see the dividend right away, but neither do you in your retirement statement. We're used to that in that respect, and we should start thinking about those kinds of community problems that way.
Thank you very much. Same question, Tom Glendenning, 2 minutes.
I'm going to first talk about the first thing that pops into my mind, which is money and budget. Someone making $40,000 a year. By the old bank formula, 25% allowable for a mortgage is $10,000. For 20 years, that's, what is it, $200,000, and that's barely approaching what would be on the market today of houses in Chatham County. Now, it'll certainly get you a very nice modular home, but I think I'll say the expectations and the disparity in income have caused a real difficulty for the people who are actually the ones we're thinking about and worried about and working toward. The other thing is that the subdivision regulations link affordable housing to a specific subdivision. You're supposed to, if you have a large enough subdivision, you're supposed to have so many houses within that, a certain percentage that are affordable housing. I think we need to separate that entirely. Affordable housing can be obtained outside in its own subdivision, and not to confuse or, what should we say, cause a blighted area within a nice subdivision like Briar's Chapel. And they bought their way out of it, and I respect that.
Thank you very much. Next question, and Katie Kenlin, we'll start with you. Is Chatham County doing enough to protect and preserve its natural resources? What do you envision the county's role being in addressing issues of environmental quality and justice, such as water and wastewater capacity and contamination? 2 minutes.
Well, I love this question. I've been living and breathing thinking about this, and one thing that really let me know I was doing the right thing by filing to run for county commissioners when I got a chance to go to the budget retreat last December. So I was really heartened to hear that right now we really need to take in and evaluate what are our current green spaces and what other nonprofits and players in the region are protecting and preserving strategic areas in our county that are going to have not only environmental impacts on our people, but also affect our economy. People are moving here for a reason. Chatham is incredibly beautiful, and we have a lot of character here that we want to protect. So really, again, recently I was at the Chamber of Commerce State of Chatham presentation, and I actually learned that Chatham County is one of the areas in the county with the least amount of parks and green space that we own as a county. So I would really like to be a part of changing that, and that's what they were speaking about in December, is taking a survey of what lands are here so that we can start seeing where this projected growth is and making sure that everyone has access to green spaces. And then so that I get a chance to answer the other part that I think this question is getting at is, with growth, how are we going to maintain protecting these rivers and our drinking water with how we manage wastewater. And it would be irresponsible of me to say that I have an answer for that, because right now nobody has an answer for that. But ever since filing, I have pledged to speak with experts at the local, state, and regional level, and that's what I've been doing. So David Delaney earlier mentioned the wastewater task force and their report, and it definitely is really looking into some options that we need to consider so that we understand how much discharge is being permitted and allowed in our waterways. Thanks.
Joe Godfrey, same question.
We have multiple issues with the wastewater and water quality in our county. Our economy depends on clean water for manufacturing, for farming, for tourism, for recreation, and energy production. We need to make sure that we're doing what we can to keep that water clean. And the other part of it is the wastewater. Again, we have a piecemeal approach right now. That is not sustainable. And I think everybody would agree that that's not a sustainable thing. So we need to make sure that we're coming back together as a group, listening to the Northeast Study Commission, making sure that we're hearing what they're saying, but also roll up our sleeves, get dirty, and get busy trying to solve the problem instead of continuing to put it out. We can't continue to kick the can down the road. We need to make some decisions. I think Tom, Peyton, and myself can make decisions. We're not the type of people that's going to sit back and allow everything to come to us. We want to make sure that we're rolling up our sleeves, doing our job as county commissioners. And I would love your support to be able to do that.
Thank you very much. Tom Glendenning, same question, 2 minutes.
Would you repeat the question?
Sure. Is Chatham County doing enough to protect and preserve its natural resources? What do you envision issues of environmental quality and justice, such as water and wastewater capacity and contamination?
Excellent question. When we founded the Haw River Assembly, the river was very dirty, filled with cancer-causing agents, and there were times at the Bynum Bridge on Monday, we could see the river turn green or red or yellow, depending on what the plants upstream dumped on Saturday. And it inspired me to write the Bynum Cancer Study, and I got really involved with that. But primarily, I don't think we're as challenged as people make out to be. On a 30-year study from Department of Environment and Natural Resources Water Quality section, from 1980 to 2010, the water in the Haw River got cleaner than it ever has been in a century or more. And that's going down to the parts per million of carcinogens too. I'm encouraged about the future of our water quality and availability of it. We do need to parse out who gets what and how much from the river flow and the lake we can actually take advantage of. We've got a little handicap because we only put in for 3 million gallons when the lake was formed, and we should have put in for 30. But in any case, I'm optimistic about the future of the environment. Everybody is very aware of the problems of the environment right now, much better than they were 30, 40 years ago. And I'm sure that anybody up here could do a good job in the future. And like I said, we want to put the framework far enough ahead that we can plan, maybe not as far as the Chinese 500 years, but 5, 10, 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, David Delaney, same question, 2
Yes,
minutes.
thank you. The short answer is no, we're not doing enough. We can do more in a lot of different ways. And one that comes to mind readily is simply climate change. I was commissioned as a second lieutenant into an Army in 1994, and that Army, as part of that Defense Department, our public Defense Department and Army, were already planning for climate change. They were already seeing what was happening in the world and what they needed to do to provide for our security and defense. And when I got to Homeland Security half a generation later and worked with the Coast Guard, I saw them doing brand new things because climate change was even more real then. And here we are today with a still present reality of climate change, but not a very good understanding in our county of exactly what that will mean for us. Our coastal counties know that quite well. They have been very closely tied to state studies, to national studies, deep research over generations about what those impacts will be. I'd like to see us have that here so that we can plan for the future in a better way. It's a great time for it because we want to think about how to use our land best. Not just to put in dense housing, but to preserve farmland and to have innovative ways to preserve our natural environments and make them as good as we can. On that point, I think Chatham County also needs to start looking for standards to strive for. I hear a lot of people speak negatively about Wake County, Cary, some other entity that is the other. We don't want to be that. Well, what do we want to be? I would suggest that it's a time for us in the environmental space to look ahead and pick a goal, a county, a community, a municipality that has done what we think is an excellent job and strive for that. This shouldn't be an easy, quick win. It should be something that's hard to do, causes us to think, come together in civil discourse, make some hard choices, because it's not easy to increase your tax base and provide the infrastructure that you need and preserve your agricultural communities, which we do want to do, and increase the environmental protections that we have along with it. Final point is collaboration. We need to work with the federal and state folks and the academics quite regularly. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, same question, Franklin Gomez Flores, 2 minutes.
Thank you for the question. Within the tools and the abilities that the county has, I believe Chatham County is doing best efforts to address that issue. And what do I mean by that? Well, have you heard about the term, the counties are critters of the state? The state provides us strict guidelines of what the counties can and cannot do. Just last week, the county established a preservation fund, and many thanks to Commissioner Hales for pushing that forward. And that's one of the elements where we're able to do and make efforts to preserve our natural resources, our farmland. And so when you really analyze what tools we have and who gives us these tools, the state does. The state has unfortunately prioritized economic development over nature. That's one of the most unfortunate aspects. So what do we then have? Well, the state tells us what our buffers, maximum buffers that we as a county can establish. They're pitiful, very, very low buffers for our streams, our rivers, just even perimeter buffers, adjacent buffers, very limited, very little. And when we ask the question about why is referring to Tom Glendenny's point about the Hall River, the state's allowing these companies to do that. And so we as a county have to work within the guidelines of the state. You want better resources or a better natural environment, that's a state level. The county is working within what the tools the state has given us to address and preserve and protect our natural environment. We can't go over and make more strict guidelines beyond what the state is saying or is allowing us to do. I'd love to do that for sure, but we can't, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you all so much for your wonderful initiatives and questions. We're going to wrap.